Hello, in this video I want to share with you my top 10 favorite architecture books. Well, this is just my personal selection, which may be different for everyone else. And that's okay because you can share your favorite books in the comments and maybe I can do a second video with more books. However, these are the books that most inspired me and influenced me in my career in architecture. So I thought it would be a good idea to share with you. This top 10 has no specific order, so all of these books are important in a different way. However, I did organize the books into different categories. So the first category is the architectural guide and fundamentals. Second category is thinking architecture, which are books that are more pleasant to read. And the third one is monographs. And before going to my book list, I would like to announce that I launched my website. And I will be posting articles about architecture, interior design, and minimalism. I will leave the link in the description below, and you can visit and subscribe to the newsletter to have access to more content. This type of books are essential to understand the fundamentals, the theory, and the history of architecture, which is crucial to develop a good understanding and a good practice of architecture. And my first favorite book in this category is Form, Space and Order by Francis D.K. Ching. This book was essential during my academic years. The book is very visual and the illustrations are very pleasant. It really helps students and young architects to understand the basic vocabulary of architectural design by exploring how form and space are ordered in a built environment. It starts with the simplest elements like a point, a line, a volume, and then it goes to harmony, proportion, circulation, and relation between different spaces. The next book in this category is Neufert's Architect's Data. Neufert was a German architect who is known as an assistant of Walter Gropius. The first edition of this book is from 1936, and since then it has had a lot of translations and updates. What I like about this book is that you can search for any type of building and you will find the spatial requirements, dimensions, layouts and construction details for that kind of building. So this book really helps me a lot when I was studying architecture and also during my first years working in a studio. The next book is Vitruvius, the 10 Books of Architecture. Well, this was the very first architecture guide and it is an essential book for any architect. It was written by the Roman architect and engineer Marcus Vitruvius Polio, and it was dedicated to the Roman Emperor Caesar Augustus as a guide for building projects. Architects like Michelangelo and Palladio used this book as a guide for their masterpieces. In this book you can find the classic principles of symmetry, harmony, and proportion, as well as the ancient methods, materials, and aesthetics. Vitruvius identified the three essential elements to create a well-designed building, which are firmitas, utilitas, and venustas. Firmitas or firmness is about the construction and the structural stability of the building. Utilitas or commodity is about having an efficient arrangement of spaces and mechanical systems to meet the functional needs. And venustas or delight is about the style, the proportion, and the visual beauty. Another great book that really helped me to understand the evolution of architecture is the Modern Architecture, A Critical History by Kenneth Frampton. This is an essential book to understand the 20th century architecture, including the origins of modernism and minimalism, and also exploring the work of great architects like Le Corbusier, Frank Lloyd Wright, and Mies van der Rohe. Now talking about books that are more pleasant to read and helps you to think more deeply about architecture. My favorite is Atmospheres by Peter Zumthor. This book is exceptional. Peter Zumthor is a Swiss architect with a minimalist approach, but he doesn't stick to a single signature style, because architecture is more than that. And in this book, he describes architecture not just as a physical or an aesthetic phenomenon, but also as something very sensitive. He writes about the sound, the light, the temperature, the tension and intimacy in a space. This singular density and mood, this feeling of presence, well-being, harmony, beauty, under whose spell I experience what I otherwise would not experience in precisely this way. The Built Idea by Alberto Baeza is another great book that I think every architect should read. Campo is a minimalist Spanish architect, and through this book he explains the beauty, the purity, and the richness of the minimalist architecture. I propose an essential architecture of idea, light, and space. This book was my inspiration to create that figure, minimalism in architecture, and it also inspires me in all my design practice. I try to make poetry, not minimalism, not purism, just poetry. The Architecture of Happiness is also a good book to read because it's about the philosophy and the psychology of architecture and how a building can contribute to our happiness or our misery. It is a book that awakens us, architects, to the responsibility we have for people's lives and how architecture can influence people's behavior in a positive or in a negative way. We need a home in the psychological sense as much as we need one in the physical to compensate for a vulnerability. Well, there are so many interesting monographs, but the ones that I want to recommend are monographs with the work of my favorite architects. So the first book I want to recommend is Tadao, Ando, the complete works from the 70s until now. And Tadao is an architect that really inspires me since I was in architecture school. And I love to look at the buildings he created, but also the exceptional and detailed drawings he created as well. It's amazing how he transforms concrete in something beautiful and how he works with form and light in such a poetic way. I don't believe architecture has to speak too much. It should remain silent and let nature in the guise of sunlight and wind. And because I studied architecture in Portugal, there are some Portuguese architects that really inspired me and influenced me in my career and in my way of thinking architecture. One of those architects is Alberto Siza. Alberto Siza Vieira is one of the most prestigious Portuguese architects with a long and inspiring career. His architecture reveals a deep understanding of the site and nature where the building is located and the cultural and architectural traditions. I like how these buildings are complex and simple at the same time. Learning to see, which is fundamental for an architect and for everyone. Not just looking, but seeing in depth, in detail, globally. Eduardo Souto de Moura is another exceptional Portuguese architect, and of course I have a book about his work. He's an architect who doesn't follow trends, but his architecture is exceptional. Like Siza Vieira, he absorbs the cultural tradition and creates something contemporary and authentic. There is no ecological architecture, no intelligent architecture, and no sustainable architecture. There is only good architecture. There are always problems we must not neglect. Well, these are my top 10 favorite architecture books, but to be honest, it was hard to select just 10 because there are so many interesting books, but maybe I can include them in another video. And let me know in the comments your favorite books and what books would you add to this list. In the description below you will find the links to all of these books, There are affiliate links, which means that if you buy some of the books through my link, you will be helping the channel and also giving me an extra motivation to keep doing these videos. So thank you so much for watching.